really handsome guys. I have to my left Mr.
Ryan Russell.
To my right, I have Mr.
Holly Mays.
Excuse me, let me get this right. Bishop.
We're just gonna do that today, huh? Let's do that, right?
Excuse me, let me do this again. I have to my right, Doctor.
We're gonna do that too, huh? Dr. Holly Mays, how y'all doing?
Excuse me. Welcome to Dallas, Texas, sunny Southside Dallas, Texas, YouTube. We are so happy to be on YouTube this
Absolutely.
season.
Yeah.
We was like Facebooking last season.
A lot of Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Right. We not coming from Facebook because Facebook had us popping last season.
Facebook,
It's
you
time
did
to
all right on
look.
Facebook.
Yes, but Facebook supported us last
They
season.
did. Well, all social networks support us pretty
Yes,
good.
yes.
But I think Facebook, yeah, you're right. Facebook did this.
They
Facebook,
did.
it turned out better than I expected.
I know, right?
Last episode, it was like one of our best viewers episodes.
You're right. You're right.
I mean, they did. I mean, we thought that our middle season, what was that episode about dating? When we did.
Dating dilemmas.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Dear Dallas Confidential. But that last episode, you guys just, oh my God, took us in the
Absolutely.
room. That we
Absolutely.
feel like we needed to be on YouTube. So here we are. So
Yes.
we're so happy. It feels good to be on YouTube. But it just smells better. It feels better. So we're happy to be here. So unfortunately, we have to talk about COVID.
We got to talk about COVID.
Unfortunately, everybody's talking about COVID.
Right.
We have to start our season talking about COVID. Aren't y'all tired of talking about COVID? Dr. Sanjay Gupta said, we are tired of talking about COVID. We are so over COVID, but unfortunately, COVID is not over us.
That's true.
COVID is comfortable with us. COVID is in bed with us. COVID is just now getting used to us. COVID ain't going nowhere. Holly.
Don't look like it, not
we
anytime
gonna
soon.
be. We pray COVID don't affect us.
COVID, fortunately, has not affected my household. It has not affected your household, Holly, but it has unfortunately affected millions of Americans. It has affected millions worldwide.
Absolutely.
The numbers right now worldwide is 21.2 million Americans have been affected by COVID. 765 million, not Americans, 765 million worldwide has died from COVID. I remember when COVID first hit
How
us,
many?
765 million have died. Excuse me, not million, excuse me, 765,000. I'm sorry,
We don't have a population.
I'm sorry, everybody know, right? I'm sorry, you guys. 765,000 have died worldwide.
A lot.
A
That's
lot, right. I remember February sitting in my office at work, and I remember when the number was like 360 people had died.
Right.
And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is going to stop soon.
Right.
Like, I just couldn't even remember.
Yeah, kind of like with the Ebola, it was an outbreak and then it kind of subsided
Died down
after
a
a
bit.
while. This one, I've never imagined it before.
Well, it's crazy because it's an increase every day.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. There's not a cutoff or a standstill, just an increase every day, and I think that's the issue, really.
Yeah, I remember when we ended season 1 in June, Dallas Confidential, we were talking about, oh my God, season 2, what are we going to be talking about? We have to start off talking about something fun,
Right.
something exciting. Right. Oh my God, we're going to have this great new set. And we just knew that we were going to be talking about roses and lullabies and cupcakes and unicorns. We had no idea we would be talking about something so detrimental.
Disease is killing
Definitely.
everybody.
No,
Yeah.
we absolutely didn't think we'd be talking about COVID. But before we get deep down into it, we have 2 phenomenal guests
Absolutely.
that we will be bringing on to literally dive in. We have phenomenal Apostle Warren, who will be on here. We will bring him back after break. We have Richard Shaw, who's phenomenal in these Dallas streets, who have some great numbers and information that he would like to feed into the subject. So we're going to have a great new season.
Right.
We have a new set. We have new guests. We wanted to definitely come back stronger, greater.
Right.
We will have more Dallas on Dallas Confidential TV. We will be not only in our phenomenal new set, but we will be more in these Dallas streets, you guys. So we wanted to have more Dallas in Dallas Confidential TV.
Right.
So please stay tuned, stay present, stay invested in Dallas Confidential. Holly has some great new ventures that he's working on. I want to be more present and involved with you. Will be more political on his platform. He will be, I know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, more voiced.
He will be more invested in the streets. He will be going into business, into schools, into the community,
Right.
getting the voice of Dallas this season. It's just way too much going on in not only our community, but in the states, in the country, for us not to bring it to you with YouTube. So we'll be right back. We're going to take a quick commercial break to support our sponsors who are supporting us. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Shout out to Juice Fruits LLC. You can get in touch with them at Juice Fruits Houston. www.judefruitshtx.com. It's a lifestyle, not a weekend. Give a shout.
Welcome back to this episode of COVID-19. Will we survive this? So this episode, we are talking about unemployment benefits. Our government is trying to eliminate the $600 payments that 42 million Americans are living off of. Currently, right now, the $600 a week payments that 40 million Americans are getting, as a matter of fact, they are no longer getting them. When this episode airs, it was already cut a month ago. As of July 29th, the $600 has been eliminated. So Congress and Senate are currently now fighting over the $600. It has not been reestablished. Our president is now trying to pass an act where he is promising the Americans $400, in which he will pay $300 through federal funds and asking the states to cover $100 through their budget, okay? And Nancy Pelosi is wanting the federal government to cover all $600 of it. It has not been passed as of yet. The states are pushing back on that. So before we get into that, we have two phenomenal Dallas leaders who have a feeling about this. They want to weigh in on that. So I want to introduce these two gentlemen. Holly?
One is more on the school side, the political side. The other one is on the community side, and well, they're both on the community side, also in the Christian, and they both are dear to my heart. The first one is he is running for Duncanville School Board of Trustees. So please go vote. He's an accomplished author. He has, and I am so excited about this book. He has a book called Habits of the Highly Effective Entrepreneur, and that's not only on CD, but it's also on hardback as well. Okay, cool. So make sure that you guys go check this out. And once again, he is running for the Duncanville School Board of Trustees as well. He is, now this is exciting. I didn't know this about him. He probably don't want me to bring this up, but I always do when I mention him. He is the patent holder for what we know as the debit and credit card machine. Okay, so listen, I want to introduce to some and present to others Mr. Richard Shaw. Our next guest, man, this guy. I'm gonna try my best not to make this long-winded.
Don't mess it
Okay.
up. Don't mess it
Yeah,
up.
I can't mess this one up,
Don't
right?
mess it up.
No, but listen, he is the CEO of the very studio that we are taping out of, WPS Studios here in DeSoto, Texas. He is also the president and chancellor of Believers Institute School of Ministry. He is the chief apostle for Believers International Ministries as well, located in Dallas, Texas. He is an author, and he is also my spiritual father as well. But I would love to introduce to some and present to others Apostle Dr. Vernell Warren as well. Okay. Thank both of you gentlemen
Thank you.
for being on. I know you guys are very busy, so we don't take it lightly for you to come. But done.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Richard Shaw. Thank you, Apostle Warren, for being here. We could not have had a better first show without having you guys here.
Absolutely.
So, talking about COVID, will we survive this unemployment benefits? Mr. Richard Shaw, what are your thoughts about this? Understanding that we're on the south side of Dallas, Dallas being the 6th largest city in our nation right now, being in the political realm, Duncanville being one of the largest cities in Dallas, what are your thoughts about that and how it affects us, knowing that the $600, these families could not do what they do, especially knowing that it feeds so many of the kids? What are your thoughts about that and you're running for the school board?
Now, the state has guidelines, and the local level has guidelines. The CDC has guidelines for re-entering back into the mainstream of employment. And I think during this period of time, they was reestablishing how are they going to get the economy back into operation like it normally has. And I think this time of being out of work, it gave some people some ideas on how can they reinvent themselves. You know, because unemployment, you're at home and you reflecting on things. What can you have done differently? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have come out of that. You know, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book that I wrote, because the time is right now for people to reassess how would they go about doing things differently. Or do you want to work for somebody? Because working for somebody, that's a wonderful thing. I you know, because I've done it, right. You know, and so I would never knock that. But for people this pandemic, I tell you, man, it's messed up a whole lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And a lot of things have changed how we operate.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and people who do business online never thought about doing business online. They're doing business now online. People are opening up their business. They're doing things online. And the wonderful thing about this, the people that's being unemployed, they've started businesses online now.
Right.
You know, and so even if they started going back to work in the economy, you know, I think multiple streams have come out of that.
Right.
Because while people are getting their businesses online, getting it up and going, people are gradually emerging, going back to work. People are starting to gradually get back, but the large percentage of people are still unemployed.
Right.
They're still depending on that. And so now that's why I would encourage people to reinvent themselves, not being afraid.
Right.
Why some of the people, most famous people in the world, people who we know of, they are not afraid to reinvent themselves.
Right.
Case in point, Steve Harvey. You know, he never wanted to work for anybody, and he lost all of his jobs. And look at how he creatively, but he has other things going on.
Right.
You know, and not afraid to reinvent himself. So that's what I would say to a person who's unemployed. Never be afraid to reinvent yourself. Look at other options, because I'm gonna tell you something. A lot of times people are working on jobs, but they have talents, they have gifts, and they never really explored that. So now, being in this pandemic, I think it gives people an opportunity to push out what's in them in the first place.
Right.
You know, because people are working on jobs and they're going to work every day, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing completely wrong with that. But there are gifts and talents that God has given each and every one of us. And now this pandemic has come. Now people are searching now, what is my next?
Right.
What is my next move?
Well, let me ask you this, because that's very good, but I think it's hard, Apostle Warren, because what I hear all the time, and Holly and I actually met in a business seminar.
Right.
We actually sat next to each other April of 2019 in a business seminar. That's how we met.
1 year ago.
It was. It was
like
2019.
2018.
It might have been, but we met at a free business seminar. We get the question all the time, how do I start? Where do I go?
Right.
Ryan
That's a
has
good
actually
question.
worked for the federal government for 25 years. When you have somebody that's done nothing but work for someone else, you always get the, how do I start working for someone else? Apostle Warren, what do you tell that mother of three who has worked for the post office for 25 years, that like you said now, you have our president who is now wanting to take $25 billion from the postal service, and she may be out of a job in a year. How do I go work for somebody else? Where do I go? How do I start? You owning a business, what do you tell that mom of three?
Well, first of all, let me thank you all for allowing me to be here.
Definitely.
And to put my input in this situation. It's so ironic you should say that, because I worked for the post office for 25 years.
Okay.
And then I retired at 42. So I've been retired about 10 years now. But what do you do if the pandemic affects your home? It's one thing to watch it on TV. It's another thing to have to live this thing.
Right.
Right now, the reality of this situation with this pandemic is nobody trained anybody. Wasn't nobody ready for this pandemic.
Right.
We weren't, I don't care what our status was, I don't care what the title was, and how much savings we had, or what type of ingenuity we thought we could operate in. No one was ready.
Right.
So now the question is, how can we start getting trained, not only for the pandemic, but how to survive in this unemployment status?
Will we survive?
Will we survive it? I think the key point to survival of unemployment with the benefits, whether they're chopped in half, if they're maximized or minimized, the fact of the matter is someone has to put in our mentality that we need to be trained on economical diversification, because we were brought up on economical manipulation.
Right.
We know how to manipulate our funds. We know how to manipulate and
employment mentality
Exactly.
rather than deployment.
Exactly.
Deployment for somebody.
how do we do it? When I worked for someone, I had to stop and think. I put a cap on me. That means, example, when I retired, I was making a certain amount of money, throwing out a figure. If it was $28 an hour, I topped out. I couldn't make no more.
Right.
And even when I worked double overtime, so much was taken out of taxes. So I limited myself to what I was worth. And so this pandemic has actually pushed the power of my potential, or the people potential, to pull from themselves and say, hold on, am I worth what they pay me?
Right.
Or do I increase my own value to make me recognize my own worth?
Yeah.
Right.
So if there's potential inside of me, what do? I write down on a sheet of paper all of my gifts versus all my talents, my failures and my success. Here's the key. In this pandemic, we must realize that some people are struggling just to survive.
Right.
But there are some people that will shift their mentality and say, I'm no longer going to struggle to survive. I'm going to struggle to succeed.
Right.
So while I'm succeeding, I might as well struggle. If I can work for them, I can work for me twice as hard.
Exactly.
And so how do I survive in this pandemic that's affected everybody economically? I must learn, or I must train myself, or seek the education on how to diversify my funds, even if it's minimal. If they cut it down to $200 a week, I must learn that there's a percentage of that minimized funds that I did not have.
Right.
And I must make it never touch money. Because it takes money to make money.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna have to learn to structure, strategize, and then survive successfully through my never touch and make my money make money. And act like I never had the money that I'm trying to make.
And here's another thing too, to spin off, and that's excellent what he said, but to make yourself valuable, because people are not going to get rid of people that are valuable.
Right.
So you want to add value to yourself. Just like Michael Jordan, he has all his skills, his human potential. All he did was tap into, he has a degree, but he tapped into his natural talent. All of us have it.
Right.
We have to go, this pandemic, what it did was it caused people to reevaluate themselves.
Right.
Okay? Because a lot of times people are so
Right.
used to trying to look on the outside to grab value.
Right.
They're looking for somebody to tell them what their worth is, when the worth is on the inside of you. So I would suggest, say to a person like that, look on the inside, reevaluate, like he said, write down your talents, write down what are you naturally gifted at, because all of us have it. If you fry chicken, you should be frying chicken, you know, and find a way how to make money doing just that. If you know that you are a comedian, you make people laugh, you need to find a way to make money just doing that.
Right.
You know, never being afraid to reinvent yourself.
But to help us, Dr. Shaw,
Uh-huh.
expound on how can we be trained to invest within ourselves.
Okay.
And no one has ever taught us how to invest.
Yeah,
Right. Hold
yeah,
on, you guys,
that's a
just
good
a second.
point.
We need to take a commercial break. You guys stay with us. We're gonna come back on how do you reinvest in yourself when you have nothing but yourself. We'll be right back. Okay. Welcome back, you guys. So we were talking about how to tap into your own greatness, into your own resources. So, Apostle, how do they lean into who they are so that they can find their own inner resources? So let's not lean into what the government is giving us. Let's lean into who we are so that we can, like you said, become our own entrepreneurs and our own bosses. Where do they go?
Well, the first thing is to really be honest with yourself. Most people are not entrepreneurs, or they don't engage in their own investment of themselves or their ability because of fear. Fear and lack of knowledge.
Right.
The Webster says ignorant. Ignorant is defined as the lack of knowledge. Now you can have all the street knowledge, all the book knowledge, economical knowledge, but if it's not led by wisdom, you're a smart dummy. And so what we must do is come into the light of who we are and what's causing me to be so afraid or fearful of stepping out to pull out of my own potential or to create something. Faith is creating something in my life that has never existed before. So how can I do this when I've never done it? I've worked on a job, I've never had encouragement. Perhaps they told me I was the one that won't succeed. I don't have a degree, I don't have the education to do it. So I must learn to educate myself. If I don't do anything, I will utilize every avenue of means of educating. If it's Google on how to do it. You can find anything on
That
Google.
is true.
Right.
You can Google, you can read, you can study, you can be inquisitive, ask questions, and then apply that to your abilities. And tell myself, in this season, I will succeed. I look like victory. I smell like victory. In other words, I'm not hyping myself.
Yeah.
I'm bringing confidence to another level.
Right.
And so I start looking at what I have around me to utilize what I have.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. You mentioned something that I really want to highlight is about bringing something out of yourself.
Yes.
Unemployment will cause self-esteem to go down.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned this earlier when you was talking about your post office job, and you mentioned this. We have ceilings, and what a ceiling does, if you hit it too much, it will cause pain, but it will also make you feel like this is as far as I can go.
Yeah.
And in this pandemic, we've learned, and Mr. Shaw, you mentioned this, the ceiling has been taken off. So now, if I'm steady used to bumping up against the ceiling, and they did experiments on this, and now I take the ceiling off, and you say, well, go. Well, it's like a dog that has that little invisible gate around them. I'm only going to go so far. So I agree with you both when you were talking about we really need to go and find more education in what we're good at to expand the ceiling within ourselves instead of allowing someone else to expand that ceiling for us.
And allowing people to put a definition.
Absolutely,
to it,
absolutely.
You know, where people have put a period, learn how to put a
Put a
comma.
comma, absolutely.
You know, and so it's like if you look at a jar and you put some put fleas or flies in there and close it, seal it up, where they used to fly and really propel themselves, they have learned how to go to a certain length.
Right.
And that's how life does people. It causes, because of certain situations, negative situations, rather than turning a problem or some pain into promise and prosperity, some people result to their environment. Just like if you look at a flea and a fly, or you put either one of them in a jar,
Right.
they used to fly farther than the cap on the jar.
Right.
Now they have to conform to their environment. That's where poverty, a lot of times people, so you have to really change your mindset into thinking, not being afraid to bet on yourself.
Right.
Not being afraid. And so what makes this book so wonderful that I wrote, I talk about fear, how to destroy fear, and how to look at fear as what it is. And never being in a position where you're not afraid to bet on yourself. So I would say, and for a person who's looking to reinvent themselves, not being afraid to do that, because you have to change your mentality from employment to deployment.
Right.
And what I mean by that, employment means that you're working for somebody else and you never look outside of that, because they only gonna pay you what they think you deserve,
Right.
or what you currently do as an occupation. You only, it's a cap there.
Right.
Whereas when you working in deployment, you have released that cap. You no longer live inside that jar.
Right.
The sky's the limit.
Right.
But what it is, some people are afraid to trust and step out. Just like Peter walking on water when Jesus told him to come.
Right.
He was afraid.
Right. Right.
But because when he looked and realized that Jesus was his answer, his safety net, because we can't name not one problem that God hasn't gotten us through.
Right.
We can't name not one.
Right.
Because, yeah, it's going to be painful in the beginning, but sooner or later, you're going to learn how to fly in the end.
Right.
You're not going to sink. You may sink and get a scratch here and there, and that type of thing. That comes with life.
Right.
But even when you're working, you have scrapes and you get a ticket. That's a scrape.
Absolutely.
You know?
Let me say something real quick, and I would be remiss because I'm a spiritual person.
Yeah.
I call this the F3 theory. You've heard of this because I learned it from you. And both of you guys can talk about this. So, Pastor, you talked about faith. You talked about education and being able to reinvent yourself. So, Apostle, I remember you telling me something where faith brings favor and favor brings finances, and I dubbed that the F3 theory.
Yeah.
So how can, because I know Dawn has another,
Yeah.
she's getting ready to go into something else, but talk a little bit about that, because I know that's something that can help. Talk about that a little bit, because you teach that.
Yeah, I believe very strongly in faith. If you have faith, again, faith is creating something new in your life that's never been in existence before. The Bible says now faith, number one, get rid of procrastination. Quit being lazy.
Right.
Quit being hesitant to do things. That's why he says now. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for.
Talk.
Hope for. I can't see it, but I believe it. If don't nobody around me believe it, I have to believe it. You mentioned Peter. When Peter got off the water, he had to really, off the boat into the water, he had to really analyze this thing. Am I getting off the boat because of the pressure of my peers? Or am I getting off the boat because of the pressure of the water? Is there enough pressure under the water to sustain me and hold me up while I'm trying to get to my target? I'm crazy enough to go after what I can't see, what I believe and nobody else believe around me. So I have to know within myself that I have enough faith that if don't nobody else believe it, it'll succeed, I believe it. So if I give birth to this faith, it'll cause favor. Not just favor over my life, but in my life, to the point that when I see you, I shouldn't just see you, you ought to see favor in my face. So when I'm coming, there ought to be something that overwhelmingly take over you to say,
Wow.
I need to connect with this guy. Because you see the potential that I'm releasing
Right,
through
right,
a
right.
glow, not me trying to shine, but trying to glow. The glow
Yes.
means that I'm digging deep and I'm creating something
Work
that
that
will
mind.
cause an illusion or a
Yes.
vision that you can see the mirror of
Yeah.
who you are.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
believe you're successful,
Yeah.
when you see me,
Yeah.
you will give me favor that I
Yeah.
obtain with all men.
Right.
So faith gives birth to favor, which will lead to finances.
Yes.
And so finances are limited and they are the backseat of favor.
Yeah.
I promise you, I live by more favor and faith than I do finances.
Wow.
And so when your favor and your faith increases, it has to give birth. When favor and faith come together, they'll give birth to your finances.
Absolutely.
That's what
Yeah.
changed. And let me say this on this unemployment real quickly. This
Yes.
unemployment.
Yeah.
Don't be intimidated and don't lose your mentality because of the minimal magnitude of the money.
That's
Right.
right.
No matter what size the money is, people say I don't make enough to save. Yes, you can. You said it, Dr. Shaw. If you change your mentality, you'll change your circle. You change your circle, you change your attitude, you'll change your world.
You will.
And we don't
That's
want to
true.
operate in a circle because we'll get the same results, but we
Yeah.
create our own world.
Right.
We become the gate of faith. We become the door of favor, and it'll give birth to the finances.
Yeah.
We can allow or deny access to what we let in our minds and
Yeah.
our heart that will cause us to stop being who God has ordained us to be.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to have to open up this thing and say, listen, I just need to change my mind about me.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who have I been? I developed a poverty mentality. I grew up with a limit. So now that I'm older, I'm coming into the knowledge of, if knowledge is power, wisdom is wealth.
Yeah.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
question is, do you want to just have knowledge and power, or do you want to become wisely wealthy?
Wow.
Right.
That's the
Wow.
question.
Yeah.
Rich, most people say, I want to be rich. Rich is a condition,
Right.
but wealth is a spirit.
Mhm.
See, rich people that used to be rich, the condition changed, the pandemic come,
Yeah.
now they're no longer rich.
Yeah.
But when you're wealth
Okay,
and
yeah.
favor and wisdom and knowledge, the spirit follows you even in a famine.
Yeah.
And there are some people that they look, and I'm almost through, they look to come up, but they haven't studied to stay up when they come up.
Wow, that's
Because what goes up come down.
Right.
right.
The unemployment was here, but now it's down.
Yes,
Just
it is.
because it dropped, if I was trained on how to maximize my money at the moment, on my ability and my gifts, and I educated myself on it, I'll obtain favor that when the finance shift, my favor will increase.
That's
Yes,
absolutely right. And I'm
that's
happy
good.
that you mentioned that
I'm glad
because
that-
I think that it was very ignorant for the leader of our country to say that that $600 people wanted to live off of and they wanted to stay on. And in the midst of him saying that the unemployment rate has continuously lessened, right? It's
Right.
decreasing.
Right.
While he continually say that unemployment is decreasing because people do not want to live off that money. People want to go to work. They want to provide for their family.
Yeah.
Week after week, unemployment is lessening, right?
Yes.
Unemployment claims are lessening. People are going back to work. In the last 3 weeks, unemployment has been under 1 million claims, and unemployment has lessened because people want to provide for their
They can,
families.
yeah.
They want to take care of their families.
right.
So I am so happy that he is wrong. Right? Well, so while they're fighting over the $600, people are going back to work. So I appreciate you saying that. YouTubers, our followers, I want you to look up the stewardship planner. You can find it
Yes.
on, just Google the stewardship planner. You can hashtag the short stewardship planner. Get that because it does exactly what Apostle was saying. It shows you how to spend your money. It lets you know, follow biblical principles on how you
Yes.
should spend your money. The Bible talks about how you can stay wealthy versus rich. What you should be putting back for in the in your, they say bank account, but the Bible talks about in your storehouse.
Yeah.
Right. So what you should be putting away in the storehouse. You can hashtag the stewardship planner. It's not mine, but my husband and I do it. We
Yeah.
follow it, and that is for the rainy day, for the pandemics, right? So before we go to break, I have a question for Apostle because he needs to leave. We appreciate you being here. As a business owner, how do you, when your employees come to you and they say, if we make it through this, I no longer want to be your employee. I want to be an employer. Help me become an employer and not an employee. How do you help them transition to be an employer and no longer an employee? I want to no longer be the $12 employee. I want to be you. Give our VIPs is what we call our guests, right? Our co-hosts, our people that follow us. Give them 5 steps to go from being an employee to an employer. What do you tell them?
Number one, be a positive person yourself.
Thank you.
Number two, connect with the right people.
That's right.
You have to connect with positive people.
Good.
My job, even if I'm employing people, if they're working with me, but they desire to go further,
Okay.
I would be a selfish supervisor, a selfish CEO, a selfish business owner if I only want to entrap them and keep them down
Okay.
and enslave me.
Right.
Right.
But a wise person will have the mentality that if I own my own company and I have workers working with me, I don't like the term for me. They're
Yes.
working with me.
Right.
And so I need to impregnate them. That's number three. Get someone that'll get you pregnant enough with knowledge
Right.
so you can give birth to your own.
Absolutely.
But if you are with the wrong people, they will make you have
Try
a
to
mental
stagnate.
and an emotional abortion before you give birth to the
Yeah,
knowledge
try
that
to
you're
stagnate.
obtaining on their job.
Absolutely.
So while you're on all these jobs, get as much as you can. Obtain this information, get pregnant with it, and give birth to your own.
Right.
Number four, make sure you're hooked up with someone that will make you a disciple of their knowledge.
Absolutely. Got
Make
it?
you a disciple of their knowledge.
Okay.
So if I pastor a church, and I've had, my God, so many, I think this is the year that I've had the least amount of associate preachers with me, and it may be about 16 or something like that. But my job is not to try to build the membership of the ministry, to build a big monument and keep the people in there so I can be known as a mega ministry. My job is to disciple these people through the Word of God, give them knowledge, get them pregnant with the Word so they can go out and get other disciples and spread around the region, because it's not my church. In other words, this job, this company was not given to me just for me. In order to grow, find someone that will invest in you and help you grow.
Right.
Connect to the right person, and that will push you even when you don't want to be pushed.
Right.
Okay.
I would encourage them.
Got it.
Give birth to it. Get pregnant by someone with the right knowledge, because all it takes is hooking up with the right wrong person.
That's great.
And if you get the right wrong person, it's gonna stop your destiny and alter your mentality.
Yes.
And so we can't panic during the pandemic. We have to plan during this pandemic.
Yeah.
And while we're planning, we have to make sure we're willing to be processed during the planning.
Yeah.
And I want to say this is number 5. I want to say this. While you're planning and being processed, always keep in mind that your process is going to be so painful, it's going to feel like punishment. But while you're being processed, the painful punishment feeling is actually proving you to be
Yes.
who you are.
Exactly.
And after you've been proven, you will get promoted.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much,
Thank
Apostle
you.
Warren, for being here. We feel
Appreciate
blessed to
it.
have had you. When we come back from break, Apostle Warren will no longer be here, but then I have a phenomenal question for Mr. Richard Shaw. My question for him is, as a member of the Dallas community, what resources do we have in our backyard for those who want to take Apostle Warren plan and implement it? What do we have for you here in our community where you can now implement
Right.
Apostle Warren plan? What resources in our community can you use? Okay, because unfortunately we've had 800 people pass away in our community. What have our city council put together so you can, as you said, don't work for somebody, go get your own. Okay, so what have we established here for Dallas community residents to go and get their own businesses? I know that there are a lot of grants. There's a lot of resources. I've applied for some myself for my own small businesses. So we'll talk about that when we get back from break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Want to give a shout out to the team of money coaches, Miss Ebony Thomas. You can check her out on Facebook at Ebony Money Coach Thomas, 334-430-7078. Their services include life insurance, fraud, annuities, property protection. And if you are a business entrepreneur, guess what? They also operate in counseling and mentorship.
Welcome back. We have Mr. Shaw. He's still here. Mr. Shaw, running for school board for Duncanville ISD, being an active political figure in Dallas County, not just on the south side, being involved with all of the resources that we have, understanding the grants, the government system, the resources that we have for all of our citizens here. What should we be able to expect when it comes to for our community, if they want to reach out and no longer work as an employer, but they want to be their own employee? If they want to start a business, where should they go? How can they start? Where is
Okay.
SBA? Is that all they have available?
Yeah, and let me back up. We want to, now while people are employed, this is what I encourage people to do. While you employed,
Uh-huh.
you need to tap into that gift, those gifts and those talents that you naturally have.
Right,
Because where your gift is, that's where your wealth is.
right.
And so we have to get out of this mindset of employment, because you would never get to wealth thinking along that line. It's nothing wrong with that, working for somebody to gain the knowledge, to move you, to transition you.
Right.
Most of my family, we work for ourselves. Most of my family, they own their own business. They had their own companies. My family, that's what I came from. And as I went off to college, the people that made the impact on my life were educators. That really made the impact in my life, that made me believe in myself, to want to reach back and help somebody else. They were all educators.
Okay,
So that's the path that I went.
okay.
But that entrepreneur spirit is still there. Why? Because that's what I know. That's what I came from.
Okay.
That's what my family instilled within me. So I went off to college. I got myself educated, and I always had this spirit of wanting to reach back and help other people. So that's where the educator in me, reaching back, educating people, giving them knowledge, and helping people to explore their full potential. So I encourage people to not only, before you make that transition from employment to deployment, you need to gradually do that.
Right.
Don't just up and just say, hey, I'm gonna just quit this job and I'm gonna just go on. No, I don't encourage that.
Right.
I don't encourage that. What I encourage is to tap in while you're working, you gaining skills and knowledge. Take those skills that you learn on the job and use them for yourself.
Got it.
But you don't just jump out there and do it and you don't have a plan.
Right.
So what I encourage, one, is look within yourself. Know what you are naturally gifted at. So when you step out, you're not just stepping out and you don't have a plan on what you're going to do with yourself.
Right.
You have something to fall back on. Why? Because it's something on the inside. It's a talent that, for example, there are some people who are naturally gifted at doing hair. You don't really have to go to school for that. You go to school to refine your gift.
Right.
Education is a wonderful thing. Because that's the path I went.
Right.
And I'm still reaping the benefits of a person who's educated, because it gives me options.
Right.
I can work for myself, but I also can work for somebody too. So I have the best of both worlds, so to speak. So what I did was, in the writing and the invention, creating a job for myself. Because I'm gonna tell you something. This is not to demean anybody, but there are three things that I want to pass on to somebody who may be listening in, and to this group here. Poor people talk about money more than they do anything else. They're always looking for money. They're looking for somebody to get it from. A person who's rich, those people talk about things. But a wealthy person talk about ideas. Ideas is what is going to get you it can take you farther than things. It can take you farther than just sitting bit rhetoric about money. And so you want to figure out, do I want to be a person that talk about money all the time, or am I a person that talk about things all the time, or am I going to talk about ideas? Ideas is what I put into a book. Ideas is what caused me to get a patent. Why? I didn't have to go to school for that. That was a natural talent.
Right.
That was a gift that I looked on the inside of me and I explored it.
Right.
So with my job, what I did was, I used that as my seed money.
Right.
So for him, he's working for a government. There's nothing wrong with that. But you want to reach your full potential. You want to talk about ideas. You want to explore those ideas that you have. Sit down and think about all the different things that you want to do, and figure out, okay, how am I going to get there? Number one is you're always going to need money to get there. So while you have your seed money, you need to be investing in that idea that you came up with, whatever it is whatever that looks like to you.
Right.
You know, if it's a lawn business, I'm just using it as an example. You want to use that seed money to invest in the lawns and the lawnmowers and whatever comes with that. If it's hair, you want to use that seed money to invest in the things that you need to get your business up and going. So in the event of unemployment hits, you already hit the ground running. Why? Because you've been doing it all along. You've been playing it all along. Instead of sitting back watching and waiting to see what happens.
Right.
You're already ready to execute that plan. But so many people are so caught up in the rat race, and they're not thinking about the deployment piece.
Right.
So when the pandemic hit, nobody's prepared. Why? Because they've been dependent on this rat race of going to work. It's nothing wrong with that, but have a plan.
Right.
These people that's unemployment, a lot of them didn't have a plan. But what it does is it calls you to bring out what's already inside of you, the smart people. Smart. When I say smart, I don't mean that you have to have a degree, because there are multi-millionaire people who don't even have a degree.
Right.
They don't have no degree nowhere. Mark Zuckerberg, he doesn't have a degree. He went to Harvard though. That's top of the line school. When we talk about Bill Gates, he doesn't have a degree, but what he did was he built his business right in the garage. He had a plan.
Right.
Because his mindset was deployment, not employment. So now he has people like myself who are educated, who can come in and run his company.
Right.
You know? So you got to have a plan to put in place. Now, you say money, and I encourage you, and I said to you, while you have your seed money, you need to be investing in. If you need to get a loan, you need to invest in your business, to expand your business, I'll suggest that you go and do that so that you can have it, you can hit the ground running. Now, there are other things there are grants that you can get for your business too, and they talking about that now. There are some businesses, they're offering grants now to give people who have small businesses.
Yes.
Take that money and don't do nothing extra with it other than reinvesting into your business. Because I'm gonna tell you something, the difference between rich people and poor people is that they take their money and they invest into their business. They reinvest into their business. That's the difference.
Right. Right.
That's the difference. That's the difference in the mindset. So you don't go out and buy a bunch of clothes. You don't go out and go and buy rims for your car. You take that money and you're reinvesting in yourself.
Wow.
And I'm gonna use this as an example. Tyler Perry is one of my mentors. Tyler Perry, one thing that I admired about him, he had a hard life growing up, and then he stepped out, he believed in his dream.
Right.
What he did, he took his seed money, wherever he got it from.
Right.
You know, whether it's through income tax, or whether it was working for somebody temporarily until he got his dream up and going. That's exactly what he did. He took his employment money and he invested into his deployment section over here.
Right.
So that's the difference between a rich person and exactly.
Poor person.
It's a difference.
Yeah.
It's the mindset. So if you want to be wealthy, you want to take whatever profit that you have and reinvest back in it, but put a part over here and toward investing.
Right.
You know, investing in stocks.
Right.
Invest. You don't have to be much. It can be $10. It can be $20 a month. Invest. That's a nest egg over here.
Right.
So while you doing other things, whether it's employment, whether it's deployment, what this money over here is growing.
Yeah.
So,
And I think a lot of it, I think a great thing about the COVID, where we survive it, I think one of the things that you've mentioned, Apostle has mentioned, is mentorship.
Yeah,
You know.
and that's another thing I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because here's the thing. A lot of times people, whatever it is that you want to do, you want to get a mentor.
Absolutely.
You want to get whatever area, if it's writing book, you want to partner with people
Yeah.
that's doing that.
You want to
It-
definitely.
Yeah, you definitely want to do whatever business that you have that you want to do, whatever that looks like on the inside to you.
Mhm.
I don't know, because everybody have different ideas.
Absolutely.
Right.
You want to partner with people that's actually doing that. Whether it's listening to, they may have some, well, you can go online, you can look these people up, or you can YouTube it, and you want to learn all you can
Yeah.
from the people that's actually done it.
Right.
That's people that's doing it.
Yeah, and it's very difficult, you know, especially in the inner city. A lot of
Yeah.
African Americans don't have people around them that are doing what they want to do. They
Right.
don't have people that they know that they can look up to, you know.
Yeah,
So I'll tell
Because
you.
here's the thing, and I'm gonna say this to you, not to cut you off, but I was
Hey,
thinking, I'm glad you brought that up, because here's what it is. Here's what the problem is. A lot of people who have it together, who's going about, they stand over, they're not involved in the gossip. They're not involved. People who are about something, who are doing something, they don't have time for the gossip.
Right.
You know, people who are not doing anything, they busy tearing those people down, because they're going about their life, they're going about their purpose, doing what it is that's what's on the inside, what God put in on their plate.
Absolutely.
So that's the difference between the two. So if you want to get the attention of those people, they'll give you information.
Absolutely.
They'll give you information.
just
A lot of
without all
times,
the gossip and
they
all of that.
exactly. They don't want that. They don't want that part.
Absolutely.
They want. Okay, how can I help you? Tell me exactly what it is that you want. If you want me to give you money, they get that all the time.
Right.
Yes.
They want something some information that they can pass on to.
And I don't mean to cut you off,
Yeah.
Mr. Shaw, because we
Yeah.
got to take a really quick break, because
Yeah.
as much as we can continue to talk about this for the next 30
Yeah.
minutes,
Yeah.
man, we really got to go ahead and take a quick break real quick, and when we come
Yeah.
back, obviously we want to thank Mr. Shaw for coming
Yeah.
on the
Thank you.
apostle,
Definitely.
but we really want to kind of wrap it up with a final thought.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you guys something. There's so much information that can be put out there because it's COVID thing, it's
Yeah.
unemployment thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But listen, I want to encourage you guys, before we come back and thank Mr. Shaw, make sure you guys go and get his book, Habits of a Highly Effective Entrepreneur, because all these principles that he's talking about, all these things he's talking about doing, he's doing no more than just quoting it from his book.
Yes.
He wrote it in his book, and I've
Yeah.
read this book 3 times.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but listen, but when we come back, we'll give you our final thoughts, and we'll high five Mr. Shaw, and we'll be right back with more Dallas Confidential TV.
Thank you.
Thank you, God, for joining us at WPS Studios right now in 900 East Beltline Road, DeSoto, Texas, 75115. We pray that you're enjoying the show. We want to give a shout out to Dr. Vanell Warren. Over at WPS Studios, they specialize in filming, photography, videography. And if you are a church and you're looking to grow and develop that ministry, listen, they also operate in chapel services as well.
At COVID, we will be surviving. Unemployment, our numbers, Dallas, unfortunately, we've had 816 people that have passed by it. We've had 2,500 people that's been affected by it here in Dallas County. We've had 25,000 people in the state of Texas that's been affected by it. We're not really surviving it. We're not surviving it, Holly.
Right. Right.
The $600 unemployment it hasn't been reapproved yet. Mr. Shaw, you're running for the school board. We definitely will support you in that. When is the school board election?
It's November 3rd, 2020.
Okay.
That's coming up. and that's the actual election day.
Okay.
But the early voting is before that. It's October the 19th through the 31st.
Okay. You guys go out, please support Mr. Shaw in the election for Duncanville School Board. We did a show last season on needing to vote. We're going to do several shows this season on voting. We will definitely be out there campaigning for you. Please let us know so we can definitely have our show out there at the election post
Okay,
for
right,
you.
okay.
Ryan, Mamba mentality. You are very big on Kobe Bryant and his Mamba mentality. How do you apply that to the whole COVID? Like, you know, what do we tell our VIPs? Like, how do Mamba mentality help them get through this right now?
I think mainly it's based upon faith, hope, and your vision, which if you do have a gift God has given you, you have to be the one to believe in that gift. You can't go by the narrative of what someone else is telling you about the gift God gave to you. You have to have the vision of this seed that God has planted in me. How can I plant that in fertile ground, in a solid foundation? And like Mr. Shaw said, Dr. Shaw said, not only do you plant that seed in other areas of your life and other businesses, you have to be patient enough to believe that your vision will reap a fruitful harvest. And I think in the preparation for cultivation, for the pruning, for the watering, whatever the mentality is, you have to believe in that vision, and you have to know what you need to do to make that vision come into fruition. So it's almost like the time in preparation, the time you put in investing in yourself, whether it's entrepreneurship, business, whether it's faith, spirituality, physical health, that's is what's going to come out as far as your action. What you invest in, you pray for God for a supplication, and what you receive is how to apply that in the application of your life. So mainly, it's all about faith and vision that you have in yourself, because if you have no vision, you're leading the path down basically blind.
Absolutely, man.
Very good, very good. Holly, COVID, will we survive this?
Absolutely. COVID is no different than any other pandemic or epidemic that we've had in American history. The difference is the longevity in which it takes for us to either increase the normality of it so it becomes a part of our life, or you defeat it and you beat it and you conquer it and you move on to something else. It's just time consuming and it's a process. So yes, anything like that we can beat. The fact of the matter is what everybody's been saying is you have to reinvent yourself as the normality in which you know it is being reinvented. And in the process of doing that, make sure you're taking some good steps to, one, get a mentor, because you don't know everything. Okay, we have to admit that. We have to admit what we don't have, and that's knowledge of things that we've never done. And the next thing is we just have to roll with the punches. There's going to be some blows, and when they come, you're just going to have to allow them to come, get hit. But in the words of Dr. Eric Thomas, I'm sorry, he says, but if I look 20 years from now, after you got hit and you got knocked to the ground, you're still on the ground, that's the biggest problem. So America has been knocked down, but 5, 6, 7 years from now, are we still going to be laying down? And that's going to define who we are as a country and as a culture. So
I think we will survive this by taking care of one another. If you know someone who is on unemployment and that they benefits have expired or they're not getting the additional $600, I ask that you support them. You reach out to them. This is a time that we need to come together as one. Whether it is black, white, green, orange, purple, turquoise, or tan, you need to reach out to them. Unfortunately, that $20 that we spend when we go to Chick-fil-A on these expensive number 1, 2, and 3 meals, we need to call our cousin, auntie, uncles, and stepsisters, and we need to offer them that money. You need to realize that that may not be you today, but it may be you tomorrow. So I think that we survived this by standing together.
Right.
We survived this by reaching out to one another. We survived this by taking that Saturday that you would typically go to the mall or you would lay around your house and you reach out to that local nonprofit organization. You go downtown and you support that shelter. And we survived this by supporting one another. I am a CASA advocate, which is a court-appointed special advocate. I have been going on my 3rd year. I love being a CASA advocate. I also support the Salvation Army. I also support the Habitat for Humanity. I support several nonprofit organizations. You may not have to support the ones that I support, but I would love for you to support one of them.
Right.
Please support something or someone. That is how we get through the COVID. We won't get through it without getting through it together.
Right.
Thank you for tuning in to episode 1
Absolutely.
of Dallas Confidential TV. Holly, myself, Ryan, we couldn't do this without you. Dr. Shaw, we thank you so much for being on this episode.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dr. Shaw will be back for episode 2, COVID, Will We Survive It, where we're talking about the education system, our teachers, our administrators, and our students. Will they survive COVID? We will see you next week. Thank you so much, you two, for having us, and we are out.
Thank you.